Hi all, as promised, I am back with the second video. No weekly wait for this one since chapter 28 ended a bit tense. So let's just get into it. Chapter 29, Lyric. Lyric gasped air into her lungs as the water released her, and she fell onto the ground. She pressed her fingers into the damp sand, shuddering, and breathed in again. Her throat felt raw, her chest tight. The water dried off her skin as if something were sucking it away. She felt her hair dry impossibly fast, and it floated around her head before settling down her back and shoulders. Shoving herself to her feet, Lyric swayed. Her sister! Where was her sister? Looking straight ahead, she met Runa's raging eyes. They were glowing, actually glowing, with red-orange light. And there, hovering behind her sister's shoulder, was a small red dragon covered in scales and spikes. Lyric yelped, pointing a finger at the apparition, just as Runa, eyes flaring, pointed past her shoulder. "What is that?" they said at once. Lyric jerked her head to the side, looking back, and saw a small blue dragon floating beside her. It was sleeker than the one by her sister, with leafy wings that looked like the seaweed from their first night on the beach. As it floated there, Lyric realized it wasn't solid. There was a ghostly quality to it, its body shimmering, allowing her to see the ground and trees behind it. Its gold eyes were staring at her with disconcerting familiarity. "Hello," a small, unfamiliar voice said in her head. Unlike Gandhara, the voice was composed of images and sensations. When it spoke, she saw a massive wave rolling onto a shimmering white sand beach, and another image of a large-scaled creature swimming through a pink cloud of hundreds of bell-shaped animals, the translucent bodies rippling like long sheets of fabric. "Gandhara?" Lyric called uncertainly. She listened, but Gandhara didn't respond. Lyric didn't feel any connection to her at all. Her mind felt clear and unburdened. "What are you?" she thought at the creature. "I'm your guardian," the dragon said. It shifted in the air, wings rippling as if underwater. "I'm a wyvern, or at least I'm taking the shape of one. You summoned me." It shifted again, turning its head to stare through the spinning threads of wind that still trapped Lyric and Runa on the sand. "I summoned you?" Lyric asked in confusion. "Do you require protection?" The wyvern stared in the direction of the priests. "Someone is casting." "Protection?" Lyric asked aloud. She thought back mere seconds ago to when she thought she was going to die and put a hand to her cheek. No, I'm part of the ritual." She looked at Runa, several paces away, who was staring at the red wyvern. Lyric squinted, staring at her sister. Runa looked different, like there was light trapped beneath her skin. What had happened to her while Lyric drowned? Had Runa been caught in water too? Lowering her hand, Lyric stared at it and flexed her fingers. She felt stronger, more alive, as if she'd been charged with energy. Had Lenadara known this would happen? Was this some effect of calling power through her and Runa to summon the old ones? But why had she nearly drowned? Why had the water come at all? Because Lyric was Cyrene? What would have happened if she hadn't accepted she could breathe water? That it couldn't hurt her? Gandhara had been yelling something at her, telling her to breathe, and... "Gandhara?" Lyric asked again. "Who?" the wyvern asked. Pain rippled across Lyric's palm as her skin split in a neat line, spilling blood onto the black sand. She yelped, pulling her hand against her chest. The wyvern roared inside her head, whirling towards the priests. Something shot away from the creature and shattered against the spinning strands of air, bits of ice and water spraying upward. An arrow of fire shot towards the same point from Runa's direction, exploding right behind whatever Lyric's wyvern had spat towards the priests. Lyric looked at her sister and saw Runa crouched, hand raised as if unsure who to attack. Blood dripped from her palm onto the sand. She was enraged, her eyes glowing red. Her lips started moving, flames flickering across her fingers. "Rue!" Lyric screamed. "We can't fight it! The ritual!" Runa's eyes snapped towards her and she faltered, the fire dying on her hand. The wyvern beside her spun and spat, shaking its head as if confused. "Stop," Lyric said, turning back to the blue wyvern. "Don't attack." "They hurt you." The wyvern sounded confused. Lyric could hear the priests now, the sound of their voices rising to a commanding yell. She couldn't understand their words. She cradled her hand against her chest and tried to see through the spinning wind. Was that Lenadara with her hand upraised? Did she have a knife? Pressure gathered in Lyric's chest as she gasped as power rushed through her. It felt like a dammed river had been unleashed, sending a torrent of energy ripping through her body. She staggered, and the wyvern wheeled towards her, flapping its wings uncertainly as it stared at her face. Lyric's skin felt thin, too thin, and she wondered if her body would rip apart from the strain of holding the magic inside. Water beaded across the tops of her feet, and the air around her rippled, distorting. She clutched her head, droplets of water spinning around her, growing larger, becoming ribbons. Wind ruffled the hem of her robe, pressing it against her ankles. Then the air rushed up her body, lifting her hair around her head. Everything exploded. The pressure, the energy inside Lyric's chest blasted outward in a rush, filling the air with a thunderclap of sound. Water sprayed away from her, hissing as it dissipated and collided with intense heat from Runa's direction. The sand was blown away beneath Lyric's feet, and the spinning wind ripped apart, tossing the priest to the ground. As one, the torches snuffed out, plunging the clearing into darkness. The first line of trees exploded, filling the air with fragments of wood and torn leaves. Eyes wide, Lyric searched for Kell. Had he been hit? Where was he? Was that him lying in the dirt? A light broke the darkness to her left, and Lyric turned her head. Runa's wyvern was emitting a pale red glow as it hovered in the air over her sister's shoulder. Kell? Lyric called, looking back towards where she'd last seen him with Elodin and the other Sareni. What was that? Runa asked, coming towards her. Her hand was shaking as she reached towards her face. I don't know. Lyric caught sight of Kell struggling to his feet. She took a step towards him, intending to rush into his arms. The ground shook, bucking violently. Lyric gasped and fell onto her knees. Runa crawled towards her, reaching out, and Lyric grabbed her sister's hand. She could feel the tiny prick of claws as the blue wyvern grabbed her shoulder. The earth rumbled, and the ground split between them and the stunned priests, dirt cascading into the opened fissure. Lie! Look! Runa gasped, neck craned upwards. Lyric looked up. Color filled the night sky, rippling ribbons of purple, green, and red. The dazzling lights wavered, then the colors disappeared and darkness returned. The sky looked wrong. Where were the stars? Something was blocking their light. Something huge. It was coming towards them. Get up! Lenodara yelled. Face them on your feet! Lyric whipped her head towards the priests and saw Lenodara standing and staring up into the sky. She was wounded, blood smeared across her cheek. She held a dagger. Get up, Lai. Runa hauled on her hand. Standing, Lyric stared upwards, her mouth falling open, as 4 massive dragons slowed above them. The dragon's wings stirred the air into eddies that tugged on her hair and robes. Her wyvern buzzed around her, its chest puffing like it was a smaller bird valiantly trying to scare off one much larger. Lyric felt impossibly small beneath the weighty presence of the dragon's eyes. It was an effort to remain standing with a straight back. And if Runa hadn't been beside her, defiantly staring up at the old ones, she would have cowered on the ground. We need your help, Runa yelled. Her voice was fierce and determined. Aerith is dying. The eyes continued to watch them, and one of the dragons, its color unknown in the darkness, opened its mouth, releasing a burst of mesmerizing blue flame. In the blinding flash of light, everything disappeared. Lyric squeezed Runa's fingers as blindness overtook her, clinging on for dear life. Ow, lie! Runa hissed, attempting to wrench her hand free. Lyric loosened her grip but didn't let go, blinking furiously until her eyes refocused on her sister's pained face and the hissing red wyvern. They were standing in nothingness, the world replaced with pale gray mist. There was no visible floor beneath Lyric's feet, but it didn't feel like she was floating either. What was below them, holding them up? Were they back in the Vale, inside a cloud? Or was this another in-between place, suspended between the living world and the Vale? Lyric could still feel eyes on her. Looking up, she saw 4 dragons, gliding high above them with wings outstretched. One dragon was pale white like snow, another deep black, the color of obsidian, and the third dragon a brilliant scarlet. The fourth was blue and unbelievably long, with flowing tendrils curving back from its long head, and fins like a gigantic water serpent. The others looked like she'd imagined, all scales and teeth, with horns and long spiked tails. The dragons circled, watching, the blue dragon hissing at the others, and then, just as suddenly as their arrival in this place, they were gone. 4 figures appeared in front of Lyric and Runa, tall but not overly so. They seemed to be human, but she knew they were not. There was something feral in their eyes and the way they held themselves, something ancient. In the center stood a woman with long white hair and impossibly blue eyes. She was beautiful, with a pale, narrow face and thin arms. A shimmering white dress, seemingly made from diamonds of ice, draped her slender frame. To her left was a man with dark red hair and dangerous golden eyes. His face was strong, imperial, and his unamused stare made Runa's glare look petulant and childish. His skin was the color of heated copper. On the woman's right was another woman, taller and muscular like a warrior, with dark umber skin and short black hair. Her eyes were gold like the man's, but a darker, deeper color. Her dress was a mixture of white, brown, and black, like a beautiful stone with gemstone veins running through it. Slightly off to the side, standing well away from the other three, was a curvaceous woman with pale blue hair and wide-set eyes that, when they briefly crossed over Lyric's face, seemed to shift between green and blue like an ocean storm. The woman glared at the other old ones, an expression of pure venom contorting her heart-shaped face. "No," she said, and promptly disappeared. The white-haired woman sighed, a weary sound that swept from her lungs like a winter wind through the mountains, and turned her piercing eyes on Lyric and Runa. Lyric's wyvern shifted uneasily beside her, its eyes tracking the movements of the remaining three dragons. "Are you in danger?" the wyvern asked inside her head. Lyric didn't respond, staring at the legendary figures in front of her. The white-haired woman had to be Aerie, and the muscular woman in black was likely Wrath. That meant that the man with red hair and golden eyes was Fury. "Who summoned us?" Aerie asked. She blinked, a slow, dispassionate movement, like someone still waking from deep sleep. "We did," Runa blurted, her fingers tight on Lyric's hand. Lyric searched for her sister's emotions, the shared nervousness and awe Runa must also be feeling, but she felt nothing. Ever since Runa's separation from her body, their connection had been muted, unreliable. Lyric still wasn't used to it, and now that Gandara was gone, she felt unusually hollow. "Are you well?" the wyvern asked inside her head. Lyric blinked. Well, not entirely hollow. Warmth trickled through Lyric's chest outward, moving through her arms and legs. Her fingers tingled. Was the wyvern sending her energy? "Focus," Lyric reminded herself. Runa was introducing them. "You are ours," Wrath, the woman in black, said. Her eyes were unnerving and dangerous, and her nostrils flared as if she was scenting the air. "You are also of Sereth." Fury curled his lip in disgust. "She abandons us again. Did you notice?" "Aerith is dying," Lyric said. Her mouth dried as all three dragons stared at her, their eyes ancient and knowing. She felt completely naked, stripped bare of everything but the bones beneath her skin. Could they see her heart beating in her chest? Could they hear it? "Dying?" Aerie asked. She frowned, and her eyes lost focus, as if she could see something beyond them in the mist. Wrath crouched down and pressed a hand against the nothingness beneath their feet. "The taint." Her voice was grim, concerned. "It's back?" Fury's eyes widened with alarm. "How? We trapped her!" He whirled, his hands clenching, and bared his teeth at Lyric and Runa. "Did you release her, foolish children? Did she seduce you with promises of power, of eternal youth? I should strip the flesh from your bones. I should—" "Calm, Fury," Aerie said, putting a hand on his arm. Lyric swallowed. Her heart had stopped beating. The white dragon shifted her gaze to Lyric and the tense wyvern beside her. "Soothe your guardians. We won't harm you." Lyric glanced sideways and saw blue light glowing along the wyvern's mouth. She looked at Runa and saw flickers of flame flaring up along the red wyvern's clenched jaw. Calm, Lyric thought, hoping the wyvern couldn't feel the terror inside her. "Don't attack." It glanced at her, gold eyes uncertain, then settled atop her shoulder like a heavy bird. Lyric's anxiety retreated somewhat as its tail curled loosely around her throat. "How did the taint return to Aerith?" Aerie asked. Lyric exchanged a look with Runa, both frowning in confusion. "Return? All we know is it was released when someone attempted to summon you before, 13 years ago." Wrath, standing up, exchanged a look with Fury. "Someone attempted to summon us before." "King Rikaran of Rendashar," Runa said. "He wanted to control you, use you in his war against the Sareni." Aerie looked sad and regretful. "They fell to war then? The council disbanded?" "What other outcome could there be?" Fury barked. "After what Sereth did." "Yes," Lyric said, looking between Aerie and Fury. "It disbanded centuries ago. We wished to stop the war too, but that's not why we called you back," Runa interrupted. "When the ritual failed, it destroyed the cities of Fenda, poisoning the land in the Sea of Screams. We thought it contained, but the mother tree in Ionar told them it's been spreading underground for years." "Aya," Fury frowned and arched a thick brow. Whatever the taint touches dies or becomes corrupted and twisted, Lyric said. If left free... Yes, Aerie said. We know the destruction it can cause. It is good you summoned us. Perhaps it is not too late. Your fire can destroy it, right? Runa asked. Stop it from spreading? Aerie inclined her head. Relief flooded through Lyric, and she squeezed her sister's hand. The old ones would save them. They'd save their father, save Mama. They could remove Kel's silence, give him back his memories. They could end the war. We need to examine where it was released, Aerie continued. Determine if... She cut off, frowning. Something's wrong. What are they doing? Fury demanded, his fingers rising to brace his skull. Wrath spun, her fingers elongating into sharp claws. Who is... Aerie roared, throwing her head back, the sound dangerous and angry, ripping from her throat in tones no human could make. White flame shot from her mouth, rushing upwards impossibly high and burning a path through the mist. Fury and wrath roared with her, writhing as though something crawled beneath their skin. Their eyes glowed wild, animalistic. There was nothing rational in their eyes, no enlightened understanding. Gasping, Lyric grabbed Runa's arm as Wrath screamed and scratched long furrows in her own cheeks. The blue wyvern, roaring beside Lyric's ear, gripped her shoulder hard enough that its claws pierced her skin. Lyric could feel power building in its body and corresponding pressure in her chest. Runa pulled away from her. The dragons leaped upwards, their bodies changing, growing impossibly large as they clawed up into the sky, their human shapes abandoned. Fire blasted from their mouths. What's going on? Lyric yelled, turning towards her sister. She staggered. It felt like she was moving, shifting sideways. The mist vanished, the clearing popping back into view. Trees burned to her left, lighting the night, and screams filled the air. Lyric gasped as pain exploded in her head. She reeled, reaching shaking fingers to her skull. The pain fled almost instantly, and she blinked, tears from her eyes, focusing on Runa. Her sister's wyvern shrieked, back arching, and then it focused its eyes on Lyric. Fire shot from its mouth. No! Runa screamed, her hand flying out. Lyric shrieked, falling backwards as a burning bolt rushed straight towards her. Danger! Her wyvern screeched inside her head. It spun, and something curved out in front of Lyric, glittering as a fiery arrow exploded across it. Lowering her arm, Lyric stared at the shield with wide eyes as it flickered and died, red spiderwebs of color crackling across its surface as both faded away. It absorbed the fire from Runa's wyvern. It tried to kill me, Lyric yelled. She's compromised. I'll protect you, the blue wyvern said. What? Lyric turned and saw her wyvern erupt with blue light. No! An arrow of water shot away from it, aimed at Runa. Runa yelped and dove sideways, her wyvern throwing up a shield and deflecting the attack away from her. Lyric, stop! Eladin yelled, his voice loud and commanding from somewhere to Lyric's right. Seishala appeared beside her, running out of the darkness, her hand clamping onto Lyric's wrist and wrenching her hand sideways. It's not me, Lyric gasped, twisting in her grip, trying to put herself between her wyvern and Runa. Danger! The wyvern shrieked inside her mind. Stop it! Stop attacking! Lyric could feel a connection to the wyvern, a tether of power inside her chest, but when she tried to grab it, it slipped away from her. She turned wild eyes to Seishala, who stared at her with grim confusion. Get me out of here, Lyric yelled, pulling the wyvern woman towards the trees. I can't stop it. Without a word, Seishala yanked on Lyric's arm and sprinted into the forest. Towed along, Lyric ran after her, ignoring the pain in her feet as she dashed across rocks and twigs. She looked behind her and saw the blue wyvern flying after her, its head moving between Runa in the clearing and Lyric. Eladin and Lairdie moved in front of Runa, blocking her from Lyric's view. Stumbling, Lyric nearly fell over a green-clad body on the ground as Seishala yanked her around it. What happened? Lyric gasped as they fled into the trees. The dead! The dragons! Seishala yelled over her shoulder. Where's Kel? Lyric asked, sudden panic surging through her. Where's... Kel ran at her from the left, intersecting with their path as he jumped around a fallen tree. He was breathing hard, his face and clothes dirty and covered in sweat and blood. Lyric stopped abruptly and was almost yanked off her feet by Seishala, who was still running. The Sereni woman stopped, letting go of Lyric's arm as she saw what had caught her attention. Tears sprang into Lyric's eyes, relief flooding into her as Kel grabbed her. He wrapped his arms around her and pressed his face against the top of her head. Head against his chest, Lyric could hear his breath, fast and ragged, and the cadence of his heart beneath her ear. You're alive, Kel breathed. We're far enough away now, I think, Seishala said. Your dragon isn't attacking anymore. Lyric pulled back from Kell, remaining in his arms, and looked back at the blue wyvern. It was no longer glowing, and had landed on a stump nearby, staring unblinkingly at Kell. Blessedly, it only seemed curious, if that was the right emotion. "A friend," Lyric told it. Kell made a surprised noise. "Is that a dragon?" "It's a wyvern," Lyric said. "Where did it come from? Is it one of the old ones?" Kell asked. "Seems rather small." An amused sensation filled Lyric's head, and she realized the wyvern had sent it. "It's protecting her," Seychala said, "or thinks it is. Why is it attacking Runa and not us?" Lyric frowned and studied the wyvern with a worried expression. "I don't know. Why did you attack my sister?" "She's corrupted." "No, she's not." "Is it speaking to you?" Kell asked uncertainly. "Yes," Lyric said. "What did it say?" Seychala asked. She stepped closer, eyeing the wyvern warily. "It said Runa's corrupted. I don't understand." "She's dangerous." "Not to me," Lyric said. "Did Laenadara do this?" Kell asked. "Some consequence of the ritual?" "I don't know, but I intend to ask her." Lyric narrowed her eyes. What had happened with the ritual? The dragons had been ready to help, and then they changed. Was it something the priests had done, or had someone else interfered? "You can't," Seychala said. Lyric blinked and looked at her, her anger faltering as confusion took over. "Why not?" "The dragon, the red one, killed her," Seychala said. "Oh." Numbly, Lyric glanced back towards the clearing, hidden by the trees. She could see smoke in the distance. "What happened?" Kell asked. "You disappeared, and Laenadara and the other priests kept chanting. Then she sliced open her wrist, and there was blood everywhere. We tried to move forward, but the archers stopped us. I didn't know where you were. I was yelling. Laenadara was screaming at the sky, and then the dragons came back. They ripped into the priests, killed some of the archers, set fire to the forest. They were enraged, wild. We didn't know what to do, and then you just reappeared and attacked each other," Seychala said. "Not us," Lyric said, looking at the wyvern. "The wyverns. They must both think we're dangerous to each other. I don't understand." "You may call me Azora," the wyvern said in her mind. Lyric blinked. "Azora?" "What did you see?" Kell asked. "When you disappeared? Were you with the old ones?" "Yes," Lyric said, looking back at him. "But they were human, became human. They talked to us." "It must not have gone well," Seychala said. No, it was," Lyric said. "They were going to help us and cleanse the taint, but then something happened. They said something was wrong, and then they became beasts, turned back into their dragon forms." "The priests," Seychala said. "Whatever they did after you disappeared." "But why? Why would they want the ritual to fail? It doesn't make sense. The dragons turned savage. How does that help them? And the dragons attacked them and set fire to the forest." "Maybe they didn't realize how dangerous the ritual was," Kell said, his voice tight. "Perhaps they wanted to control them, like the butcher." Seychala spit on the ground. "Did any of the priests survive?" Lyric asked. "We should question one who performed the ritual with Laenadara." Seychala glanced back towards the clearing. "I can go and see who is left. The dragons flew off, heading east, so it should be safe enough." She eyed the wyvern and looked at Lyric. "You should wait here." "The dragons." Lyric glanced around them with a worried expression. "What do you think they'll do?" Kell's arms tightened around her, and Lyric leaned against him. "Nothing good," he said grimly. And I think I'm going to have to stop there. There's only a couple of chapters left, but it's quite cold in my office today, and my voice is still sounding a bit rough from being sick. I can hear it. And so I think that, yeah, I'm going to have to record the end of this later. I will try to record it relatively soon, so you don't have to wait very long until you get the whole entire story. So yeah, thank you for listening. I will be back as soon as I can to read the end of the story, and then we will have completed Daughters of Ironsea. Anyway, so hopefully you've been enjoying it. Thanks for listening, and I will see you again soon. Bye!